Hello and welcome to Sonic Bytes, the freewheeling conversation and interview series for the eclectic music lover. This week we're thrilled to welcome our 8th musical guest, Perle Solvès.
It's just a matter of time before I step out of the shadow.
Perle is a singer, songwriter and voice actor, currently living in Corsica and performing across Europe. Born to a musical family, Perle was exposed to everything from Mozart to Michael Jackson from a very young age, being carried from theatre to theatre as a child, studying music from the age of 6 and singing from the age of 13. However, despite her musical lineage, Perle initially shied away from a career in music, choosing instead to study biology, but it wasn't long before the family bug took hold and she began to develop an interest in musical theatre, studying and gaining experience in Paris, London and New York and writing her own music on the side. I first met Perle back in 2015 as part of the musical cabaret Got a Problem, organised by current Hairspray West End lead Lizzie B, and was completely floored by the sheer breadth of technique, power, control, tone and emotion in Perle's voice. We stayed in touch over the next couple of years, sharing music and recording medleys together when she asked me if I'd like to work on some of her original material and record her debut EP with her in Paris, an offer I absolutely couldn't refuse. Recording Just a Matter of Time was one of the best musical experiences of my playing career, not only because of the amazing songs that we were able to bring to life, but also because of the wonderfully welcoming atmosphere and infectious energy that Perle creates every time she enters a room. She is an amazing friend, musician and human being, and an absolute joy to have on the podcast. In this episode we discuss Perle's new EP Just a Matter of Time, as well as learning how to sing and singing techniques, writing music in different languages, live looping vocals and much more. As always, if you're enjoying the podcast, it would mean the absolute world to us if you could follow us on Spotify, Apple or Stitcher, or subscribe to us on YouTube, as it really goes a long way to helping support the show and allows us to make even more freewheeling content. We hope you enjoy it.
It doesn't have the best ring to it. Yeah.
That's a clap for you.
And that was also probably the most synchronized, non-getting into each other's way clap that we've had on the show. So we've always been like, okay, let's clap now, and then everyone just tries to clap, and
everyone's like that for like 30 seconds. Like, no, you clap.
Yeah. I can also hear. I'm not sure if you can hear on my end. I don't know if it's me or if it's Leo, but it's Guy Fawkes night we're recording this on, and you might occasionally hear some like random comet sounds or explosions, but I'd say
no worries.
Don't worry.
The world is not ending. It's just Guy Fawkes.
yeah. It's just firework now. It's fine.
Just into the guy.
Into the guy, exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been really lovely. I mean, we all have a bit of history together, but it's really nice to see you after such a long time, because we haven't seen each other since March, because that was right before we went into lockdown. We finished recording your EP, which is absolutely amazing, by the way. I've been listening to it and really thoroughly enjoying it. And then we went straight into lockdown. So so your project was the last project I did before we went into lockdown. So I've still very fresh in my memory still. But you guys haven't seen each other for 5 years, right?
No.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. It was just a one night show, I guess.
It was.
One.
I still have. There's still this recording on YouTube of this show of me singing a solo. It's on YouTube.
Is it still there?
No
yeah, it is.
Yeah. For the listener, this was a show on a boat. Was it like a canoe boat sort of thing?
Yeah, everything went wrong. We had no electricity, and then it was swinging. It was it was insane, but we managed to do it in the end. But it was on the boat.
It was a really wholesome show. I mean, it was called Got a Problem, so it was sort of in the name.
So perfectly in the theme. Yeah,
we had problems.
But that I thought it was a really cool show. I mean, it was just like a sort of like a medley of theatre tunes that Lizzie J, who was the organizer, she. I mean, how did you even meet Lizzie in the first place? Was it just a musical theatre connection, or?
Yeah, I was wondering about this actually.
Yeah. I auditioned.
Oh, you auditioned? Oh, it was an audition show. There you go.
Yeah. I auditioned. So we've never met before. I just auditioned and she seemed to be interested in what I was doing, and that worked out. And then that happened.
Was that just like an ad on Facebook or something, or?
I'm not sure if it was on Oh, you know where it was? I think it was because I used to have a day job in an office in London in a call center.
Sure.
Which I'm not going to name. I don't know. Can I? Anyway,
Yeah,
and I think Lizzie was working in the same call center, and I think it's an ad that was in the internal
Job.
email sort of from the office, and I think I saw that there, if I remember correctly, and I was like, yeah, why not? So I just applied and auditioned, and off we go.
Off we go.
Yeah.
I think it seems to be the case that a lot of creatives they do work in call centers. We've had a couple of other guests who also work in call centers as well. It's just sort of like a nice kind of like, it's something you can sort of go in and out of when you have I know Lizzie worked in one because she was always doing theatre work, and then when she came out of theatre she'd go back into the call centre again, and so sort of like in between jobs when you need to have obviously income and stuff, it's a handy place to be able to work.
Yeah, because it was one of those. I mean, they recruit a lot of artists for this because they offer like a 0-hour contracts job, and obviously sometimes you just do an artistic job and then it stops, and then you still have to pay rent. And obviously, I mean, for those who don't know, I'm from France, and we don't have a system like that, which is actually cool. So if I work a certain amount of hours artistically, then I can still get an income well when I'm in between jobs, which is not obviously a system in any other countries. I think Belgium has a similar one, but otherwise, yeah. So obviously in England, you still have to pay your rent. So I think that was a compromise for a lot of us, and obviously there were a lot of creative people in this job because it was I can go on tour and come back, and I can do artistic stuff and then come back to it.
It's one of the things I've always liked about France is kind of like just in terms of the structure of the government and just how it looks after its own people, that like it's very supportive of things like the arts, and sort of just generally it kind of it looks out for you if you're interested in doing that sort of thing. It seems seemingly a lot more than in the UK.
Yeah, it feels like a theme. I mean, the week before, we had this guy called Ned on the podcast, and he was talking about like touring and playing concerts in Europe and how it was much friendlier on I mean, I don't know if you share the same experience in France or anywhere else in Europe, but he was saying how it was just much more welcoming in terms of maybe just the smaller gig scene across Europe as compared to in London or in the UK.
In France, you mean like people were more welcoming? Is that what you're saying?
Just across Europe. So I'm just wondering what it's like in France, really, in terms of.
I'm not sure. Obviously, this sort of system has its downsides, like and it can be inconvenient. Inconvenient, is that even a word in English? I'm not sure. That's
a very English word.
Okay.
Very inconvenient.
So it can have its downsides, but
sure.
I'm not sure in terms of welcoming. I think obviously it defends culture a lot, even though now with the COVID and stuff, I mean, you can argue with that, but hey, but it's still financially you can definitely be supported, which is cool.
Okay.
And which is something great to have. But in terms of how people are welcoming stuff and audition, I left France because I felt that it was not welcoming diversity as much as in London or or it could be in the US, because most of the time in arts I felt that I was watching the same film over and over, and I was listening to the same music over and over, and I was watching the same shows over and over. So I think that's why I left in the first place, because I wanted to see something else and to have something else artistically. So I'm not sure if it's welcoming in that sense, but I understand that obviously if you're managed to be a working artist in France, and we have this, financial system that is sustainable and that is actually helpful, because I mean, my family has been working in the artistic industry for many, many years, and my dad is now over 60 years old, and he doesn't have to work in a bar when he's in between job. Like when he's in between job, he's working on his instruments at home because he has to, because that's his job. So yeah, that it's welcoming in that sense, definitely. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, you've lived in New York, London, and France. I don't know where in France. I'm just saying France. Somewhere in France.
Somewhere. Yeah, I've been living in France, mostly Paris and Corsica, and London, and I've been studying in New York and working in New York. So I've been having a week of training in New York when I was training with my school in London. Sorry, it might not make sense, but basically, I did 1 year musical theater course in London, and during this year they had 1 week where we could train in New York with Broadway performers and people from the industry there, which was an amazing experience, because New York and London, completely different vibe and way of working.
Sure.
So
which one do you like more in terms of music and life?
I'm not sure, because
just a different thing, right?
it's completely different energy wise. I think New York, and maybe to generalize Americans and their way of working, it's out front, and it's like, oh, we're doing this now, and then I don't have time for anything else, so I'm gonna do something else with my life. So it happened, like I was in rehearsals. In Europe, we're more like, oh, we're gonna have a rehearsal and then we're gonna go for a drink. In New York, it's not happening. So I don't have time for drinks. I have something else to do. So it's kind of crazy in that sense. Yeah. I mean, that was my feeling in my, my experience there. But then in terms of how they how they work with so much passion and fun, it's very, I don't know how to express this, but it's very upfront and very energetic. So you just have to take it all in. But as New York can be, I think it's a very buzzing and energetic city. It's alive all the time, and it's just,
I guess it's like it's sort of like no filter, like sort of without the British politeness, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And
don't have time for that.
Are you describing that specifically with like sort of show business people, or is this just a general attitude?
even builders and coffee shop workers, just like.
I'm not sure, because obviously, I mean, my experience there was mostly, in the artistic industry and gigging. So I don't know how it can be anywhere else. I imagine that it can apply in other fields. Sure. Okay. Because it felt, I don't know if you have ever been to New York, but it's very it's a jungle. It's crazy. It just never stops. Sure. It never stops. So if it's like that in a, as the energy of the city, it might be in different fields. I'm not sure. But
yeah, fair. I mean, I guess London and New York are sort of the theater capitals, so you've certainly placed yourself in the right places in order to soak up that type of culture. I mean, I'm quite curious in terms of, because I first like acquainted with you via sort of like a theater sort of context. Is that something that is always been part of your musical DNA growing up? Like, how did you get into music? When did it start becoming? It's a bit of a cheesy question, but like sort of. No. Like when did it become sort of like, okay, I'm going to slightly lean in this theater direction, not to box you in or anything, but.
I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know if my path is interesting, but I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, because obviously I was sort of my dad is a musician. My mom was a dancer. She still now works in the music industry. My aunts are a musician. My grandfather was a musician. So obviously I was born in an artistic family. So I was kind of always into it. And my mom was pregnant with me. My dad was playing in Cats in Paris. So
Wow.
yeah. So obviously it kind of was there all my life. But I didn't want to do this for a very long time because obviously seeing my family working in this industry, then I knew what could be the difficulties of it. So for a long time I was like, no. Even though I started, even though I started playing music when I was 6, I think. I started with piano and I wanted to learn how to sing from a young age. And I was lucky that I had a teacher at like 12 or 13 years old who actually said, yeah, okay, I'm going to teach you.
Sure.
But I think in terms of I started having theater, drama lessons, acting lessons, I mean. Drama lessons. But yeah, acting
The
lessons.
acting paying off there.
How to be dramatic. But acting
Step
lessons.
1, every time you say drama, you have to go like that.
Exactly like
Have
this.
my drama
this is
lessons.
This is
At
the
the age
drama
of 6.
pose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this. This is a drama pose as well.
Yeah. How are you? I'm sad today.
But I don't even know what I was saying. Yeah, I started acting lesson. I was probably 18. Yeah, because it was the same year I started university in biology. So nothing at all to do
Sure.
with, yeah. And then I studied theater and I was like, yeah, actually, I might go that way. So it was always
cool,
there.
yeah.
To answer your question, I don't know if that answered your question, but it was always there. And even though I tried to avoid it, and even if sometime, like it happened to me in my life and career where I was like, oh, I'm sick of it. I'm just going to do something completely different. It always comes back. Always. So yeah, that's how.
I'm curious, sort of on that though, because obviously you said that your whole family is very musical. What was their reaction, sort of, when you decided to go and sort of to lead into the musical side of it and sort of like pursue that career? Were they happy for you, or were they kind of like, were they a bit nervous? Were they like, how did they react? Because like I'm a first generation musician. None of my family are musical at all. It's just me. And so like when I was like, oh, I want to do music, they were like, well, we have no idea how to help you. We know nothing about it. You know, we listen to music, but for your family, sort of like how did they react?
I mean, very well. I mean, they were always supportive. And I'm so lucky and grateful for that. They were always supportive with everything that I ever pursued or wanted to do. I think we just had that joke with my mom. She was like, "Oh, yeah, maybe it would have been better if you would have been a lawyer or a doctor or something like that." But just as a joke, because she knows how this industry can be, and sometimes it can be very difficult or feel very difficult. But I mean, it was never. Yeah, it was always very supportive, and yeah, of course they were happy, and they are supporting me every day and helping me out, you know, as much as they can. Sometimes the downside of it is that when I was younger, I think during my teenage year, or when I started really learning how to sing, like I could have a knock on my door, be like, maybe you should sound a bit more like that, or be careful with this. And I was like, can you just let me be? But it comes from a very great intention. Yeah. It come from a very great intention, and I think, and obviously I can have those talk with them and be like, how does this work, or can you help me with this? And they will understand, which is something great to have.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's something I'm very, very, very jealous of growing up, because like my parents were, they've always been really, really supportive, and they still are, of everything that I do. But like past a certain point, sort of like when if I wrote songs or if I tried anything out, sort of like when I asked them, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? It was sort of like the stock reaction was just, yeah, that's nice. And it's kind of like, but it wasn't like good or bad. It was just like, that's nice. But like, they didn't really sort of know anything about it. And I had to wait until I came to university and met sort of other like-minded musicians that like, I could start having these conversations that I was itching to have, since I was sort of like 14, 15 with people, and finally start like being surrounded by those people. So the fact that you had that, like as a child sort of growing up, annoying as it is as well, is awesome.
I mean, it's a balance, right? Like if your dad and mom are picking apart your chord progressions that you're writing when you're 12, that's a bit of a different story,
Yes. Yes. But I think it must be hard for them to just find that balance as a parent of letting your child find their way and trying to figure things out on their own without being imposing yourself. Or sure. I think it must, as a parent, it could be quite tricky because you're like, oh, I don't want to influence you. I don't want to impose myself, and I want you to find your path, and I want to be supportive at the same time. I want to help you out. I think, I mean, not necessarily applying to music. I think it's a parent job in general, but yeah.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I'm curious in terms of your sort of your voice and how you developed it as well. As obviously, it's such a powerful, like amazing, like rich, vibrant voice, I'd say. And it's awesome because you're like you're quite well acquainted with the looping as well. So it's like if you didn't have enough Perle, she can multiply herself like 10
There's
times.
always more of me all the
better.
time. That's where the drama comes from. A lot of me all the time.
And I'm just curious, like, was it, so you said you had singing lessons, so was it like more of a solo thing from the start? Did you do any like choir? What was that developed there? Because I know a lot of people in the UK, they sort of like, oh, I went to choir as a kid and like, and then I started singing and then it's like, oh, now I sing. But like, what was it like for you in terms of learning how to sing, which is something I've never done, learn how to sing. I mean,
choir, not that much as a child. I think I had couple of choir experiences as a child, but it's not so much that something that I was much into from the very beginning. Not because I didn't like it, but just because it didn't happen for some reason. But sure. I wanted to learn how to. I've always been singing as long as I can remember. Even as a very little kid, I always sung. And I wanted to learn how to do it properly, if that's even a notion. But I wanted to learn. And in France, there is this belief that you can't teach children how to sing because it's bad and because their voice is still developing. And you shouldn't teach because it's dangerous, which is wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's stupid. I think it's evolving now.
Is it an attitude, like sort of thing?
Yeah,
or
no,
is it
it's just because it's. But I think it's like this common belief that it's dangerous because the voice is still developing, obviously, when you're growing up.
Okay.
But it's. I'm saying it's wrong because. It's like when you teach kids how to dance or to play football or something. Obviously, you have to be careful, and you're not gonna make a kid sing La Traviata or I don't know, Mrs. Butterfly or something like that. But you can still teach them how to be acquainted with their voice, their body, getting sensation because it's in your instrument is your body, so you still have to. You have to feel resonance, you have to know how placement work and how breathing work. And that's, as long as you can teach the basis and it's reproducing sound, which you do when you're a baby. So as long as you make things and teach things in the safe place, I think it's perfectly fine. I to teach kids and perfectly safe as long as you don't make them do crazy stuff. But like anything else, my point being that I was lucky enough that I had one teacher who's a classical singer, who said, "Yeah, sure, I'm going to teach you." And I was 12 or 13, so I started with classical singing. When I was 12 or 13, I think that helped a lot, because if you start young, then you can get acquainted with all your sensation and all of this that I was telling before. And then, you get on that path and you get to meet other teachers, and you get to learn other techniques. Because voice is endless. You can do so many things with the voice, and that's actually, I think, fascinating. And then I went in the London path, and I learned how to belt. Which belting technique is a singing technique. I'm not going to get too much technical, but I can get into it if you want to.
Please,
yes, please.
Okay, let's get technical.
Teach us, Perle. Teach us.
So basically, how to keep this simple. Belting is a sound that you can make with the voice, with your larynx, which is the thing that surround your vocal cords. When the difference between chest voice and head voice, the larynx flips. If you belt, you can do higher notes without your larynx flipping. I don't know if that makes sense, but I might give you an example, like a sound example.
Yes, please.
So basically, this is head voice. Maybe that was a bit high. And if I want to belt, this is gonna be. I'm just gonna go away from the microphone.
Step back.
It's gonna be and belting is gonna be. So my larynx hasn't flipped off.
Right,
and
okay.
that's why you can hear singers like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, mixing those sounds and belting techniques, which is very popular in musical theater, to have these very powerful notes, high notes, and there's endless possibilities with the voice. And I think it goes in that path of you get to meet teachers that just gonna teach you different things. So yeah, I got lost in there. Sorry, but
no, that's so cool. Yeah, because I'm not like a singer at all. Like I've never done any sort of vocal training, and it's just so interesting. Like I guess with singing, it's so different if you're growing up learning how to sing compared to learning how to play an instrument. Like obviously, kids' voice, like as in growing up, your voice will change completely as you grow up, as you go through puberty, whatever. But you always have that period where you sound like a kid, and then you sound like a teen, and then you sound like an adult or whatever. Like Stevie Wonder sort of thing, Michael Jackson sort of thing. But as a kid, like if you pick up an instrument when you're 7, then you're like, apart from just like sucking, like you don't really like sound like a kid,
Yeah, no, I yeah, of course, because I mean, it's your body. The instrument is your body, so obviously it evolves, and obviously you have those massive differences between kid, teenage, adults, but it's still evolving with you as a person. So even if you, when you grow old, it will evolve.
Oh yeah,
Barbara Streisand doesn't sound the same now as she was 20 years ago. You see what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it
Or John
it will
Mayer after
always
vocal
evolve.
surgery.
And
Exactly.
but even when it evolves as you are as a person, I think. And obviously it could be, and voice is very specific because it's something so intimate and so personal. And I get why people can be like, oh, I'm so afraid to sing, because you're showing who you are completely when you sing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's obviously it's very common to say that and can be very cheesy, but yeah, I can understand why people say I feel like I'm completely naked, because it's like, hey, this is me and this is my soul. Hi. So so it can be very, very intimidating. And obviously and it evolves with you as as a person. And I mean, something you were talking about the EP and very, very specific example with that. When I was recording this EP, I was going through changes in my life, and I could feel that I was not singing at the same way as I did for those past couple of years. And I had to find myself finding sensations again and get used to another sound, because I was evolving as a person. So, it's never ending.
Yeah, and I think it's like sometimes as an instrumentalist, it's something that you sort of forget about, you sort of neglect it a bit. You sort of maybe don't think about the vocals as much. You're thinking about like, oh, like how well am I shredding right now, compared to like the vocal, which is such like a, how do you say, like a more fluid, like a bit more, I guess, a bit more magical thing, right? And I just find it funny because you have these like, I guess you don't have child singing prodigies compared to instruments. So if like a 9-year-old is like playing bass guitar like absolutely amazingly, which more of them crop up now on Instagram now.
Yeah.
These little child prodigies just like playing as if they've got like the knowledge of a 25-year-old. Whereas with singing, not that it's a negative thing, but you don't have like, oh, like I guess if a 10-year-old's like singing amazingly, then sure, like, or suddenly has like an old soul and like is singing like like a 21-year-old like amazing soul singer. But I just think that the how different it is between an instrument and a voice is just fascinating, I think.
I guess it's less measurable as well, isn't it? I think because with instruments at least, there's there are more parameters to measure. Like if someone is like for a lot of stringed instruments, if you can play fast or you can play loud or whatever, like that's kind of the measure of, okay, that person's really good, they can play really fast, you can play with a certain feel. Whereas I think because your voice it's so personal and like as you say, there's no conduit for your expression to go through. With an instrument, like it goes through your fingers and then through a piano, then through an amp, and then into someone else's ears, where it's like literally from your mouth to someone's ears. And because we all sound so different for like all the reasons you've mentioned, as well as like where you grew up, like if you have a if you speak with a certain accent, some people will like that accent, some people won't like the accent, whereas like it's very difficult. It's less so, I think, with with instruments and playing, because like you can change your instrument, you can change the way you play, whereas I think it's very difficult to change the way you sing, because it's you. And no matter how you can adopt different techniques, you can sing in different styles, but like it's still you, isn't it? And so like I think to an extent, like it's kind of it's polarizing in a good way, because like it's kind of, you have to have that sort of like, well, this is me, this is how I sound, like take it or leave it, like either you like it or you don't. Whereas with instruments, I think you can get away from that a bit more, I guess. Yeah
Absolutely. And I mean it can still apply to singing in a certain way, because obviously there is this thing. I mean, you can what we call riffing, and when trying to be very fast and find a lot of virtuosity. Is that an English word as well?
Yes.
When you sing, what used to be bel canto in and still is bel canto
in opera singing,
in opera singing. So you can still find this kind of thing, and once again, it has so many possibilities, because depending on how you place your sound and you find your resonance and I mean, you can take beatboxers, for example, and how much they can do in terms of style and sound. And even in musical theater, I think what I found very attractive in musical theater is that you can, it was this way of singing and doing so many different things and style. So it's being able to sing The King and I in a very operatic way, and then do Hamilton and do hip hop and rap, or do Once and do folk music and rock music with School of Rock and things like that. So you still have what I found great in this industry is that I could find myself being versatile and trying to find different sound with my voice. So it can sort of still apply, but yeah, definitely. There's a part of you're the conduit. You don't have any instrument in between. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there's so many different like styles of singing, I guess, or across your EP. Just to sort of try and move on to that part.
Yeah.
I think there's. I mean, I liked when I was obviously because I know that you've been sort of doing YouTube stuff. You've been doing stuff with the loop machine, which is really really cool. And I think you did like a whole series, right? Like I think I remember when you were dropping them like every day for a month.
Yeah, I set myself a challenge. Yeah, of just doing a song every day for a month, which was a bit nuts. But I think but it was amazing. I love doing this because what I wanted to do is just getting myself to just get up and create something and just not being too much in my brain or it has to sound good and it has to be good and just do stuff. And let go and be like, okay with the mistakes. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be lit in the right way. It's not going to sound in the best way, but at least I'm just getting up and doing something and just creating something, even if it's just talking about some really, really stupid stuff. Like I'm annoyed at people honking in Paris. I don't know. Yeah, that's actually something that I did. But
I remember that one. That was
so
I appreciated that very much.
And just find that freedom. And it felt really great to just be able to just do creative stuff like that. So, I've been working with loop pedals for a long time, and even before this one, which is one that is actionable. No, not actionable, but you play it with your hands. But for guitar, you can use your feet.
Yeah.
So I actually had one of those before, and because it was my way of being independent and just building my own instrumental with my voice and then do stuff on top of it. So that's why I used loop pedals a lot and having fun with it, and it gets me to explore different sounds and explore different things with my voice as well. That's why I love using this instrument. I think it's super fun. Super fun to
I mean,
play with.
it's almost like an arrangement tool, because when I was listening to your EP, like, not to say that the looping like was the reason why you were able to do the things on, but I felt it almost like influenced it a bit.
Yeah.
In terms of like knowing how your voice works in a loop.
Yeah.
Makes you like a better arranger in terms of that. I mean, I guess did you, in terms of the songwriting process, like how much does that, or like even like the arranging process? I mean, there's a lot to unpack there in terms of like how you write the songs, but like, do you write your songs like first and then arrange, or do you build them up and then sing over them? Like, what's the order, especially for the ones on this EP?
I think it depends on the songs. Some of them, I just started with the loop pedal, for example, and then built on top of it. Most of the time, I think what guides me the most is probably the melody line. And maybe it's because I'm a singer and obviously everything is drawn to the top line or the melody line. And sometimes, the loop pedal helps me because I hear these things, and then putting it in the loop pedal is like, oh, I don't have the instrument, so I'm just going to do it on the loop pedal. But yeah, it depends on the song. Some of them I started with on the piano, and then just did the chord with my voice, and then built it on top of it. Sometimes it starts with a theme or something I want to say, and then there's the melody line, and then some looping. So I don't know if that answers your question, because it's a bit of a mess.
I mean, you got to vary it up. I guess there's no like one formula. Like, I'm gonna tick these
but I
boxes
think,
off
and
on
what
the
I
way.
and because with this, obviously, I didn't want it to only be the voice. I wanted to have instruments with it, and that's where Leo as well came up in the process, and I was like, I want guitar, give me guitar. So so you helped me with that. I'm very grateful for it, because I wanted to have this full folk touch, and I think you understood that quite well. Tell me if I'm wrong. But
oh, was that what you wanted? No.
Folky Leo.
Oh, is that what you wanted to do?
Oh, that was. Oh, right. Okay. Whoops.
But how did you find? Because I think most of the things I sent you were like a lot of stuff with loop pedal, which can be with one chord. It was like, this is my melody and one chord, get on with it. But how did you? And then obviously I changed, because I was like, okay, let's try with this chord progressions, and let's try. My dad actually helped me with this, and Leo helped me with this, and other people helped me with this. But how did you find this process? Because it might be very specific and peculiar, not necessarily very common in terms of songwriting. But how did you find it?
That's absolutely. I think it was really, really interesting, because I'd never worked with someone who has that much control over their voice, and sort of like has so many, like a lot of singers that I work with, kind of they're very, very good singers, but they don't understand the voice in quite a way. And so when they come up with ideas, it's kind of, they have like a melody line written, and that's kind of it. Whereas what was really nice about your music that I really enjoyed was you had like the main melody lines, and all of your melody lines are absolutely fantastic. They're so catchy, and they're so like you can sing them straight away. They really stick in your brain. Like I've literally got Wherever All the Butterflies Gone in my head right now, and it's going round and round and round as we're speaking. But then you had sort of other vocal lines and things that you put in as well, and so like it added a really nice texture to it, and then that guided me harmonically as to what I could do over it. Whereas if it's just a melody line, there's a lot more you can do over it, if that makes sense. So if it's just a melody, absolutely. You can change the chords, you can there's a lot more in terms of vibes. So the way that you'd structured and layered what you had already, with the extra vocal risk, with the beatboxing, it made it easier for me, because there was just more things for me to kind of cross off in my mind that you definitely weren't going for. And then it was just a question of sort of finding, sort of nice chord progressions and nice guitar parts that sort of complemented what you were doing. A lot of your stuff, like Wherever All the Butterflies Gone, for example, is a beautiful song in everything, but it has that wonderful sort of like lilting, sort of melancholy kind of vibe to it. And so, and that was obvious from not only from the lyrical content, but also from the way that you'd sort of structured the extra vocal lines around it. And so it was sort of obvious to me straight away. I was like, okay, that needs to be sort of a nice melancholy sort of slow guitar part, whereas for like Just a Matter of Time was obviously a lot more upbeat and a lot more kind of visceral, and so that guided me in another way. So I really enjoyed it, because it meant that like it just made it really clear what you wanted, and so I really enjoy working like in that way.
Crowded place, feels like in a tube and there's no escape. Every morning the same routine is on. Don't even know to what, but I'm still holding on. And I run and I run and I run and I run and I run, running to the train, running through the there's no rendezvous. Didn't think this through. Why the hell am I here? I don't wanna be here. waterfall at the foot of a mountain, and I'm not doing anything just in case I fail. And I'm stuck, and I'm stuck, and I'm stuck, and I'm stuck, and I'm stuck. Tell me where the key is. So many ideas here, but I can't corrupt them. They're disappearing away. Don't wanna have nothing to say, so show me the way. 'Cause they've gone, gone. Where have all the butterflies gone? Maybe it's time to move on. Move on, move on. Come on, come on. Another day passed by, feeling exhausted. Same as yesterday, I took time for granted. I guess I got lost pursuing a dream that wasn't even mine. Now I've got nothing. I'm so lost, I'm so lost, I'm so lost, I'm so lost, I'm so lost. Used to love what I do, used to sing my problems through. Where have I gone? I can't see the dawn. Don't know what I want. Show me what I want, and I'll be gone, gone, gone. Where all the butterflies have gone, I'll be ready to move on. I am ready to move on. I am ready to move on.
That is so nice to hear you say that, because I think this is one of my main fear, and be like, okay, so this is, I've got something. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's always this thing I'm scared of, and be like, oh, this is, you're doing weird stuff, and I'm not interested, which obviously can happen, because sometimes you're not finding yourself, and it doesn't resonate with you. It doesn't mean that the other person is not talented, but I think it's kind of, I'm really glad, because I'm like, as long as you can have fun as well somewhere in the creative process, whether you're a guitar player, whether you're artistic director, or whoever, this is great. This is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, as a listener, as someone who's not involved in the project at all,
Yeah.
I think what was the most magical part for me personally was the fact that these songs are so great in themselves, but there's also, in terms of, like, you gave the band so much space to be its own thing, and it didn't feel like it was a living and breathing backing track. So it didn't feel like a stock backing track. It really felt like there was space for Leo to do his thing. And I think, not to box you in, Leo, because I know you want, like, whatever you want to do is what you want to do. But I think that
Go on, here we go.
That is a sound that I feel like it's almost as if, like, okay, that is Leo's sound. I feel, I like, not to box you in to be like, that is your only sound, but that is a Leo sound.
Yeah.
And it works. Like, I was listening to another podcast about this guitarist called Corey Wong. He's like a funk guitarist, and he was sort of like looking for his sound, and in terms of playing his own solo stuff, but also as a session musician. So similar to Leo. So he was playing on this guy called Dave Barnes's record. And he was just doing the session like Leo, just came in, did his parts to the songs, maybe contributed to the songwriting process. But he figured out he'd found his sound when his mate called him, didn't know he was on the record, but just heard him, and he was just like, hey, is that you on that record? And he was like, oh yeah, it was me. So like, I feel like it was really cool to see. It was almost like you two like almost matched really well in terms of Leo's guitar playing and Perle's like amazing arrangements and songs. So
I think
that was
because obviously what I love, something that I really love about this job is collaboration. If you and I'm always, gonna be in for live music and having musician with me and finding this energy that you can't find anywhere else. Music is such a specific art for it. You can jam with music. You cannot jam with drama or in museums. There's something very, very cool about sharing stuff and sharing some sort of, and it's very universal. There's music everywhere. So anywhere you go, you can find some music. I think it's very important for me to give them that space and freedom. I remember having this conversation with the drummer on the EP, and she was like, "Do you want me to actually match the demos?" And I told her, "Well, you can if you want, but feel free to." I mean, it's finding balance. Like if you wanna offer, and give some ideas, then I can say yes or no, and this is going in the right direction or not. But I want to give you that space as well. It's super important. And then another thing that I wanted to say in terms of, because you were talking about how it was sounding. So I don't know if I have anything to do with this, but I think
sure.
It might be the work, and it probably is the work of the sound engineer and the guy who mixed it, and I'm going to name him because he did such an incredible job. His name is Alban Sautour. Yeah. Heart. But yeah, and because so he was involved in the project. He was the artistic director on the project. He recorded, he mixed, he played some piano as well. So he did a lot of things in there, and I think the mixing part and finding the balance between everyone and finding space, because obviously there's a lot of vocals. And it might be super tricky, especially with acoustic stuff, like acoustic guitar and drums and bass and a lot of vocals.
Yeah.
Finding that balance between everything and with everyone finding this space. So I'm so glad you're giving me this feedback, because it must be super challenging for him. Because obviously I didn't do it. He was the one doing the mix part.
Staring at 20 vocal tracks like, oh.
Yeah. So it's probably his. It's definitely his work of just finding this balance and giving space to everyone in the mixing, I think.
Yeah. It was really cool when like sometimes when the bridges come up in the songs and there's like the sort of the low passed vocals where there's no bass in them and they're sort of like flying around. And I thought it was like really cool. I was like, oh, they're really like, it felt fun, like it felt like
cool.
It was, I think living and breathing was what I really wanted to get at. And also the arrangements are really cool in terms of the strings and the band. Sometimes you just need to have the right, you just have to stumble across the right musicians, and they just, of course, or the right producer, and there's just the right chemistry in the room at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and chemistry is not something that you can create. It's just there or not. And having people who are willing to listen and collaborate. And I think for me, I don't know how you found the recording process, Leo, but for me, it was probably one of the most fun and amazing things I had in my career, because it was it was such a collaborative space, and it was fun, and it was everything about mutual respect and being willing to listen to each other and just do things that we all enjoy. So I really enjoyed this process so much. So much, and thanks to all of you guys as well who participated in this. So yeah,
of course. It was wonderful. I think what the main thing that I really enjoyed was there was no ego throughout the whole thing. No one was no one was there to show off that they were an amazing drummer or an amazing bassist or an amazing singer. It was just all in service of the music itself. It's kind of, we have to make this sound as good as we possibly can. And then whatever each person had to do to make that happen, they did it, which was absolutely wonderful. It's just really nice being around people who have that, enough of a love for music to sort of to only serve that and sort of have that as the main priority, and everything else is just fall by the wayside and just get it done and make it sound as good as possible. It was thoroughly enjoyable. What I was going to ask was, so what I've really enjoyed listening to the tracks over and over, because I've been listening to them since September 2018, I think it was, when you sent them over first. So they've been brewing. It's been brewing for a while. Is your lyrics? I really enjoy your lyrical content.
I was going to go there too.
You're going to go there as well. And you just have, it's the subject matter of the songs, I think, is fantastic. It can be so uplifting, but it can also be it can hit. Like I keep going back to wherever all the butterflies gone, but that particular feeling, it hits home so hard for me personally. Just that feeling of kind of just not, feeling the sort of the excitement that you used to feel for things anymore. But then with Lost Leaf sort of comparison, that lifts me up so every time I listen to it. And so just in terms of obviously you write in English, which isn't your mother tongue. How do you find it? Did you write in French first? Do you write songs in French too? And how does it compare, sort of writing in, or speaking one language as a mother tongue and then writing in another language completely?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in and just firstly say that when I was listening to Wake Up Call this morning, first day of isolation, and the lyrics came in, it was like, "Where are you, world? Haven't seen you in a while."
Yeah.
That really hit home at that moment.
Just
I was like, "Oh my god, I'm." Which is sort of the subject matter, but anyway, back to the lyrics.
So first, if I start writing in English, I will never. Maybe it will happen someday, but I doubt it. I will never start writing in French and then translate it into English. If I did write in French, and it probably will happen again. I think English is probably easier for me at the moment. Once again, it might change. I don't know. But I think there's something very specific to the language in terms of how French sounds as a language, which is super difficult to put it into music. Just because of something very technical, such as the emphasis. Because in English, obviously, you have the heartbeat kind of emphasis sound, like boom, 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 boom. Most of the time, your language naturally is gonna be like this. Whereas French is mostly on the first syllable and the last syllable of the sentence.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you want to put this into music, how do you make that work? So it can be quite tricky. Some people do this amazingly well, and sometimes they can play with that. I'm thinking about rappers who just put emphasis where it's not supposed to be, but it still works because they want to put emphasis on this specific word, which is an interesting work. But yeah, for me, I think there's something cultural as well, because in English, in French, we love metaphors and just not really talking about the subject and just disguise in this. Whereas English is, if you want to say I love you, you're going to say I love you. I don't know why I'm putting up this French accent now, but I think there's something about that which makes it easier. To express feelings. And then I don't know if it's because we were mentioning it before recording this podcast about having this sort of it's not a wall, it's kind of a strong word to say that, but say, well, it's not my mother tongue, so I can sort of hide behind this. I'm not hiding behind English, but I think it makes it easier to express feelings or some things, just because maybe culturally it's easier. And
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
if you've heard songs that are in English and you grow up listening to those, and
There's
that's
this
how
as well, yeah.
that's how you absorb those type of feelings when you hear a Beatles song, or if you hear like a song from this century, then I sound like as if one of those songs from this century, you know, sound like a really old person, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like it just comes from your DNA and how you're used
Yeah.
to expressing your emotions, or.
But
Yeah.
I lost my train of thoughts now.
There it is.
I wanted to say, yeah, I think it was something I was worried about as well, because obviously sometimes, because I mean, I was always comfortable with English from a young age, and then living in London, and speaking the language much more. But so obviously I'm fluent, but there's still things sometimes where, I'm saying things and it's like, is that English? Maybe not. So I always have that doubt, just because it's not my mother tongue. So sometimes it's obviously, now I have friends, and even Leo, you helped me with that, saying maybe this will be better, or this the emphasis would be better on that sentence and things like that. But it was always a worry that I had, just because, I mean, and there's a lot of French people who just say, thinking they're going to write stuff in English and it's just going to sound great because nobody will understand in France. But then if you actually do understand English, you're like, it's not right. So I think it was I was scared about this. It was like, I want to write things that do make sense for English speakers, and hopefully it will resonate with them in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think.
I mean, sorry, you go.
You sure?
Yeah. No. Sorry.
Okay. I
After
think,
you, oh my God, you've been so British.
No,
No,
after
you
you,
talk first.
please.
No, after you.
It's not the New York way.
Yeah. I think I only say this from my experience of writing songs in German. While I was living in Berlin, I had to write some songs for my language course, and then they found out I could play guitar, and they were like, "All right, you can write us a song." Like, I'd never done that before. But I think because
You're like the
not,
Beatles when they went to Hamburg
Yeah.
for the first time.
but I think because you're not you're not chained is the wrong word, but you're not restricted by the same sort of cultural significance of certain words, and also the grammatical significance, and sort of the fact that, like, an English person wouldn't say that, or a German person wouldn't say that. It gives you the freedom to sort of play around with things in a way that English people can't, because you can't I would never be able to write a song like Where Have All the Butterflies Gone, because I'm stuck with this like English frame of view when I write songs, and the significance of the cultural weight of growing up in England wouldn't allow me to think of the English language in the way that you can from a perspective of being French first, if that makes sense. And so it gives you this it's almost liberating in a way, because you can just sort of it's almost like like throwing things at a wall. So I'm like, I'll just stick that word next to it and that word next to it and just see if it works. And so there are less kind of it feels like with the lyrics you're freer to do that, and it's really liberating to listen to and to sort of hear as well. Is that something is that something that's true for you, or is it just me hypothesizing into nothing?
Because you picked you were saying about Where Have the Butterflies Gone. Did you feel when you heard it, oh, that's something that an English person would never write, or was it just a generic example? I would be curious to know, because did it feel French or foreign when you listened to it?
Oh, it's really strange. It doesn't feel, it's not foreign in that like it doesn't make sense, but it's just kind of like, it's just the way that sometimes it's even just like the choice of like putting certain accents on certain words that I personally wouldn't like think to do, and so it's that kind of just it's just a completely different perspective of the language that I'm not used to hearing. Like and for me personally, I really enjoy it, because when I hear it, it's like, you can do that with that word, and like, because my brain just never thinks to do that, if that makes sense. And so it's kind of like it just opens a whole world of possibilities that you wouldn't think to use, you know. And it's just it's why I really enjoy listening to your music, because it's like looking at something I've been looking at my whole life, you know, the English language, and then just be like, oh, there's all this other stuff that I just never even considered, you know. And it's amazing. It's why it's really, really amazing.
That's so interesting. Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, especially when it's not your mother tongue, it's about the emphasis as well. Because if you put the emphasis musically on something that you wouldn't do when you naturally speak the language, I think that's a pretty common mistake. And I think when I started writing those songs or other songs, it's not even something you think about, because, I mean, where you put the emphasis is not, especially when you're learning a new language, you're like, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just trying to find my words or try to find my own thoughts in this new language. But then the more you get accustomed to it, and the more you get into... I actually asked you the question a couple of times. I was like, is the emphasis right on this word?
Sure.
But yeah, that's super interesting. And obviously, if you can play with that knowingly and be like, oh, I'm going to put this... I'm going to put the emphasis on this syllable where it's not supposed to be, just because I want to value this. And if you can play around with this, I'm not saying that I'm doing this or I have the level of doing this. Sometime maybe I will. But I know some French singers or rappers that actually do this, and I found really interesting, because then it gets me to hear the sense of it in a different way, exactly what you were saying before.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting in terms of how much the language has like sort of embedded music things, and how some languages translate, some don't. Like you have, I guess over in like sort of East Asia, you have people that just record in different languages just so that you can understand it in different markets. and obviously I don't speak sort of Japanese or Korean. I speak sort of Chinese, and there's also all these other like different dialects and languages, and how if you sing in Cantonese and Mandarin, like how does that change like the song? I guess maybe those are more like producty songs, you know. They're less like, I guess, I mean, maybe some of them are very, very personal songs where you think about every single syllable and how that relates to the music. Yeah, I mean, that's personally something I'm going to sort of think about more now that we've talked about it, just in terms of how language impacts, especially like just like spoken language, and how that shapes the music. I think that's which is thought-provoking.
Of course. Because I think obviously it shapes the culture. I mean, language is the base. Like it shapes how you actually think. I think there was a study proving, I might say something wrong, but I think I heard about a study trying to compare intelligence with how many words were in the vocabulary of the language. And I think what they managed to prove is that the more vocabulary you had in language, and the more intelligent the culture would be, because they have so many layers of how they could express different things. And nuances, because the more nuances you can get, and the more you can express things in a different way. And I think it was a very interesting thing, because obviously, yeah, it's the basic and of how you express yourself. And sometimes, I mean, it's quite common to lack words when you try to express a thought or a feeling. And it's proper to culture and language. It's so... Yeah. It shapes that, as you said it yourself, I think, definitely.
I think as well, it just has to, like, even at a base level of the way like a language is constructed, or the certain words that you have for things in a certain language, because that's what you grew up with, it has to affect the way you think as well. Like, for example, like Schadenfreude, like the German word to be happy at someone else's misfortune. Like, we don't have that word in English. And so... like because you don't have a way of expressing that.
Yeah.
We don't think about it. The Germans don't have a word for awkward. There's no word, whereas that's such an English concept, phrase, idea, way of thinking, way of behaving. And if you don't have a way of expressing that in another language, like how can you feel the same feeling? And it's like, and then as a result, can you put that into a song? Can you express it in a way that is just summed up by an easy word that is a reference point for so many people, and it's just, I swear, I swear I shouldn't have done history. Like linguistics would have been so much more of a interesting degree for me to do.
I think it's fascinating. I don't know. Do you find, because I think it's one of my struggle as well, because I keep switching, and with some of my friends who I've been living with who are French and with whom I speak English and French, and we keep switching from language to language. And sometimes people in France, they make fun of me because I'm speaking in French and then all of a sudden I'm saying a random word in English. But just because it matches my thought quicker, or because you have a word in English, or vice versa, or because you have a word in English that will express this better, then it will come out naturally. And sometimes, I think when you speak two or more languages, it can be not nerve-wracking, but it's so interesting to see how you can switch. Because obviously, we were talking about the convenient word. We don't have this in French.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Or we don't have the word random in French, or we don't have the word, so sometimes I will just say it in English, and then people will look at me and will be like, what the hell? But yeah, just because
convenience.
What is so sometimes I would say it in French. No, I know. I think that I think that's one of my common words that I would say. Oh yeah, blah blah blah. It's not convenient, but it doesn't. It doesn't exist. It's so stupid. Yeah. No, it's not even a word. Yeah.
No matter how much you try and put a French accent on it, it's not a word. No,
it's not even a concept. There's no convenient and inconvenient. Everything just works.
Yeah. So did you find the same thing with German and English for you?
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many, Germans love to do the whole, they call them zusammengesetzte Wörter, words that are shoved together. And the way they put them together, sometimes they sum up feelings that they don't exist in English, that you have Torschlusspanik, which is literally the panic of closing doors. And it's the feeling of getting older and feeling the options that were open to you when you were younger and the whole world was your oyster, they're closing, and you have this panic of I need to, and it doesn't exist in English. And so I always say I'm feeling Torschlusspanik, and they're like, what are you talking about? And then I had to explain myself for 5 minutes and to say how I'm feeling.
As you are doing now.
As I'm doing right now, and this conversation crops up a lot. But it must be the same in Cantonese as well, right? For you, there are.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Johnny, because you speak several languages, do you?
Well, it's mainly just Cantonese and English, and then I tried Spanish. But I mean, I'd love to say I'm as good as Chinese as Leo as a German or you are in French, but I guess it's just completely different. Because English is my mother tongue, my native language. Well, native, it's a weird term. My first language. I sometimes say things in Cantonese that would just have an English sentence structure or something, and it will sound really weird. But if you know me, you sort of get it. But if someone who didn't know me was speaking in proper Cantonese to me, they'd be like, you sound a bit foreign there.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah, I can't believe we've gone deep dive into language just from your EP. That's just the springboard for it.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
I love I'd love to I'm always tempted to sort of watch them back and plot a roadmap of where the conversation's actually gone, because where we start and where we end sometimes is just it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean I guess we are coming up to sort of an hour, but I'm curious in terms of what so obviously this EP is out. It's such a shame that we can't listen to it live, or you can't perform it live, and see how the songs sort of live in that sort of different spaces. That's not a studio recording. But I guess what's next for you in terms of, are you gonna let these songs live for a bit? Are you writing more for the future, or I mean, I guess you can't really plan much nowadays, but
yeah, I think that's obviously because the joy of COVID. so it's kind of hard making plans, but I'm still moving forwards. I think mainly is try to make this music live, making video like music clips, and trying to put live sets together, even if it's hard to actually plan it, and trying to get in touch with bookers and things like that. I think the main thing now is to let it grow and what's coming next as soon as possible is making video clips and just do it live and just play it live when we can. So working towards it in step by step, but when we can at home, trying to make those small things so then we're ready when we can actually go out in the world and get in touch with each other. That's the plan really.
Curious.
And in terms of writing, I've got some ideas. I think it's hard for me not to get all over the place, so I'm just trying to do things step by step, and I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about and in songs, I mean, and we'll try to develop this when the time comes. So obviously keep writing and keep singing and just keep going with this. I think it will all keep us sane somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's only been 2 months since the EP came out, so it's still it's still very much
actually. So sometimes it's hard because I think especially now with internet and social medias, I don't know if you have this feeling sometimes, guys, but sometimes I feel like I don't go as fast as I should. And everything is just like, I should have produced content every day. I should have posted this. I should have done that. And I'm not going fast enough, and I'm not present enough, and I'm not doing enough. And I think it, like at some point, it drove myself a little bit crazy. And I'm trying to find my pace with that. And obviously, I want to make a video clip, but I still have to write it. I still have to, and then you get in touch with that's the thing when you're an independent artist, is that you still have to reach out to people and to be able to reach out to the people who actually can work with a camera or dancers or whatever you want to do. But it takes time. And with social medias, and with social medias, it's how you have to do all the time, always. And it's so that's one of the main thing, and trying to find my own pace and rhythm, and try to produce things that I'm actually happy with, and trying to put out things in the world and contribute in my own way. And if I could give out some feelings and contribute in reflecting in some things and thinking about different themes, then, and maybe it will help out people, maybe it will resonate with them, maybe not. It's not up to me, but I think it's it's something really great about the artistic industry, whatever it is. So
that's cool. It's being mindful. I mean, I hope this episode is sort of a nice listening companion to to the EP. It's anything else left to say, Leah?
Thank you so much for thank you for coming on the podcast, but also just like thanks for staying in touch. Thanks for thinking of me when you came to record the EP. It was like, of all the sessions that I've done, that was one of the most fun by a long way, just because of the just the blast that we had in the studio and meeting all the wonderful people that I met as well. So thank you so much for coming on, and I really can't wait so much. My absolute pleasure. Like if we get the chance to do anything together in the future, I'd be more than down. All you have to do is call and I will be there. I will come running.
Oh, I'm sure we will. I promise. I'm sure we will find. I'm sure we will find some way when all of this, all of this is done. I can't wait. But definitely. I'm so grateful for for this, and thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, talking about things that I love the most, it's always great. So thank you so much.
Stream just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Stream it. Come on,
plug it.
Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Sonic Bytes. If you liked what you heard, follow us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts, or like the video on YouTube and follow the channel Leo Kelly G Music. Also, you can reach out to us in the YouTube comments or send us a message on Twitter or Instagram. We would love to hear from you, so stay tuned for another episode coming very soon.